The Supreme Court may rule on tariffs this month. This is Law and Society. Please subscribe. As we know, SCOTUS goes on its own time and it can do whatever it wants. But SCOTUS must act on tariffs. It has been months since it has heard the tariffs cases. And in the case of one of the plaintiffs, Learning Resources, they were a small toy-making company. And we don't know whether they are in a place right now to even be operating as a company because of what tariffs has done to them. That real harm continues during the time that SCOTUS looks at and decides this case. And what is appalling to me is that SCOTUS still hasn't acted on this issue of tariffs, despite the hardships that small businesses and medium-sized businesses are enduring right now because of the tariffs. And therefore, SCOTUS must act on the tariffs. There are 3 or 4 days this month that SCOTUS says that it may publish opinions. And I think that's highly, highly irresponsible and callous and detached from reality when SCOTUS doesn't act on something that is impacting American businesses and the American people, because tariffs have caused inflationary impacts on the cost of everything from bacon to broccoli. So why the Supreme Court waits this long, I don't know, but they must rule on tariffs, and I sure as hell hope they do so in the next 2 weeks. And when they rule, I hope that SCOTUS holds that IEEPA, which is the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, or International Emergency Economic Powers Act, does not give the president the power to tariff. IEEPA gives the president the power to regulate commerce, not to impose tariffs. The imposition of tariffs is a separate power that is vested in Congress, that Congress has to explicitly delegate to the executive for the president to enforce any tariffing power. And the word regulate is also a separate power under Article 1 of the Constitution. So when a statute says regulate but does not say tariff, and it has not been used to tariff since it has been enforced, since IEEPA has come into force and is the applicable law, it has not been used as a tariffing law. So this regulatory tariffing that Donald Trump is arguing is not part of the law that he has invoked to tariff. Therefore, SCOTUS must say that IEEPA does not give presidents power to tariff, but only to regulate. Regulating importation tariffs is not part of IEEPA. And that is not to say that Donald Trump is not going to find other ways to tariff. There are other laws and other avenues that Donald can use to tariff other countries, to make trade more restrictive for with other countries. But so far, he has used IEEPA, that one law, to tariff across the board all nations around the world. And SCOTUS needs to say that this particular way that you have tariffed the world is not constitutional, it's not legal, it does not follow the law that has been passed. It overreaches into Congress's prerogative to be able to expressly delegate the tariff power. So, and what something that's not part of the case but incredibly important is that the judiciary needs to update its processes. It needs to be more transparent. It needs to be more accountable. It needs to be more responsible to the real world implications of what happens when they withhold a ruling for as long as they have with the tariffs case, or they did with, say, the immunity case. It's very difficult to say that SCOTUS did not in some way get in the way of the deliverance of justice by waiting until the very last day of their their time of publishing opinions to publish the presidential immunity ruling, which was published in July of the year of the presidential elections. So it really made prosecuting Donald for his crimes difficult, not only because it gave immunity, but also because it waited till the last minute to vest that immunity, and thereby giving Special Counsel Jack Smith far less time to file a superseding indictment to see whether those cases can still move forward. And by doing this, just by delaying, the judiciary can have a detrimental impact on the case, like we're going to see with the tariffs and the inflationary impact that has impacted every single American and business because of SCOTUS's delay. And these delays need to be nipped. They need to be cut short. Accountability needs to be more transparent. We need to know when that case is going to be decided. And we need to have an expectation that our justice system and our judiciary will rule on these decisive and impactful matters in an expeditious way instead of working like we are still living in the age of the horse and the buggy. We are not. So let's move these processes forward. Let's legislate to make sure that the judiciary can do its work in a smoother way, fund the judiciary, provide for its expansion, and accommodate it into the 21st century world. For example, right now, there are thousands of habeas corpus cases across the judiciary. It's overwhelming the judiciary and the Justice Department because of Donald Trump's immigration policies. And if we don't reform our judicial system, if we don't reform our justice system, we will not be able to cope with the onslaught of litigation that is coming up in the next couple of years. Because all these cases are not going to go away overnight. With that said, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.